Hello, I'm Alex Lafkus. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about low water streamer fishing. Probably my favorite time to fish streamers, not because I catch the biggest fish, but I like seeing everything. It's very fun visually, but there's some techniques you need to use to be successful in these situations. I repeatedly see anybody's able to catch fish in the spring. Fish are pushed to the banks and stuff like that. As fall comes in, only a handful of people catch big fish every year consistently. And those are the guys who know the river the best. Reason why is now all of a sudden it's not just flip it at the bank. A lot of the times the banks die and you have to start pulling off the bank to fish and identify the structure where the fish are going to be there. So that's one of the keys, is look for mid-river structure. And understand how to row accordingly so that you can hit these spots in the middle of the river. So look for that stuff, pick that stuff apart, usually adjacent to some deeper water. They don't want to go as shallow as they were in the high water. So you want to look for mid-river structure, whether it's a wood pile out in 3 to 4 feet, a tip of a point, or anything in the middle of the river. Look for some of that stuff, a shelf falling off, whatever it happens to be. Pocket, hole in the middle where it trenches out, something like that. Look for the mid-river stuff. I tend to use smaller flies. I don't go to the 7-8 inch stuff unless I'm in a giant river that's still giant at low water. Most of them aren't here. Small rivers, so upper Manistee, upper Asable, tiny little stuff like that, I'm in the 1-inch range, 1 to 2. As I start getting down into some of the bigger stuff, any of it. Middle Manistee, Middle Asable, even below Mayo in low water, below Hodenpile in low water, the Muskegon, any of that stuff, I'm going to go down smaller, 3 to 5 inches tops. 5 is usually about as big as I'll run in those situations. You're just matching your size of bait to the size of the environment, trying to keep everything in line with your conditions. Some of the things that you'll see that'll pop up to you more, especially in the summer in low water, are creek mouths. Those are always going to be really critical in the summer, warm water times of year. Those are the places it doesn't really matter how shallow it is. They're going to be there because there's a cold water influence. Shade, you're going to get to a point, typically in low water, you're fishing a summertime or something where you've had sunny days, consistent warm weather. That's why the water's low now. So all of a sudden shade plays a bigger factor in it. You can catch fish up till X time when the sun gets pretty high out off the banks and stuff. But there's a time and a point where everything is pounded into the banks. And the quicker you can recognize that and you switch to just hitting the shady spots and moving through other stuff, you'll just catch more fish. One thing I think people overlook in low water is the line impact. When the water falls and gets low, fish are a lot more sensitive to line and impact on the water. Don't like using much weight on flies. I do not use heavy sink tips this time of year. I want something that's going to land soft on the water, something more natural. If something natural hits the water, fish look at it. They wonder what it is. If something crashes on the water, they run a mile away. So you got to keep that in mind when you're fishing here. You're fishing shallow water. Understand that when your line hits that water, if it smashes down, it's done. Those fish are gone. And once again, I use those Rio 4Ds. That's been the one I've really liked for doing that. So it's worked well for me. A lot of times I go to a short leader. I'm not doing 5-6 inches. I'm fishing smaller areas. I'm down to 3 to 4 feet. A lot of times it's just one chunk of whatever, 8-pound maxima, 1X fluorocarbon. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I usually have a tendency to go more towards the 8-pound maxima than I do the fluorocarbon just because of the abrasion resistance. Yeah, it might cost me a few fish, but I don't lose flies, and I land the bigger fish that go. A lot of times with fluorocarbon or anything smaller, any tippet, if you start getting down into that smaller size and you start tying loop knots to your flies, they just wear through eventually. It's going to break through. So, when I stick to that 8-pound maximum, I haven't had that issue. Those things might help you. And once again, that low water streamer fishing's a blast. Put away, you don't have to think about your 9 weight or stuff like that. It's rare that I fish an 8. I'm into a lot of 6 weights this time of year, maybe a 7 with a 6-inch double deceiver for my biggest rig. But it's a good time of year to do it. These things will help you fish the middle of the rivers, usually smaller flies, and use those lighter lines when you get into low water situations. You will catch a lot more fish. Thanks for joining me. And any questions or comments, you can put them in the comments. You can DM me, whatever you got. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.